All right, we're back. Jalissa here for New Ridge Gaming, joined by Drake Sasser, appropriately dressed for the occasion. Hey, thanks for being here.
Of course, thank you for having me again, Joe. Very excited to see some top 8 modern action here in Newark.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so the players are basically ready. So let's go throw the top 8 bracket up real quick. We'll go through that just momentarily, and then we'll get into the action. There are a lot of control decks. We've got Dominic Vitello versus Andrew Ellenbogen. Gary Yawgmoth versus Jeskai Breach. We've got Will Krueger versus Zach Allen, Hammer versus Control, even though they're both blue-white decks. That is going to be our primary match. We've got Raja Suleiman versus Steven Dykman, and we've got Justin Brickman versus George Jabbour. So we know you guys seen a lot of Control this afternoon. We are going to watch the matchups that don't have both double control decks. So Raja and Steven are going to be the backup match. So we'll see Grixis Death Shadow. We'll see Azorius Hammer, see if they can beat down the Azorius control decks. Let's go ahead and get to the table. And Drake, we'll hear your thoughts on which Azorius deck you'd rather be playing in this matchup.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know. I'm not much of a Hammer guy myself, although given Will's, the cards he's holding in his hand, I think I already like being in Will's seat off the jump. Esper Sentinel got to be one of the better cards in this matchup. But on the aggregate, as we saw in our top 8 breakdown there, I think Control is just in a very good spot in Modern right now. And some of our, NRG juggernauts who have made their way to top 8 talk about a stacked one too.
Yeah.
All kind of representing that Control archetype.
Right. All right, so 2 juggernauts here indeed. Will Krueger, the MVP last year. Zach Allen, I believe, is top of the heap of the unqualified players on the overall leaderboard right now. And so Stoneforge Mystic to follow up here. Zach Allen playing, it says Azorius Control. This is one of the blue-white control decks splashing for Ren and 6, I believe.
It sure is. I made fun of him on Twitter for it. Zach Allen and his process of play blue-white control and include the latest broken card is tried and true for him. A lot of top 8s to show for playing blue-white control with the latest broken cards printed in Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, so new additions here are Leyline Binding, of course. So that, I mean, if you're going to splash other colors to make Leyline Binding cheaper, right? Well, then you might as well splash another card. Let's try Ren to 6. No problem.
For sure, absolutely. That card, pretty good, I hear. Also very good against Esper Sentinel, although Will Krueger on the play, already kind of able to come out the gates hard and present multiple threats to be beat down. Zach Allen kind of showing maybe the weakness of Control, needing to develop the mana early with enter the play tapped lands. Doesn't allow you to deploy removal here until turn 2. Going to be able to pay for Esper Sentinel, though, when removing it from play.
Still, it's nice to see. We're going to see, these control decks put to the test here. I mean, we saw them up against the Jeskai Breach decks a couple rounds, but now this is a whole other order of speed here with Will Krueger's Hammer deck.
Oh, absolutely. And Will Krueger kind of been a mainstay on the NRG circuit, mostly with Hammer. We've seen him switch off a few times, but in the height of Hammer, we saw him win just event after event playing these Hammer decks. And interesting to see him kind of come back to it after the banning of Yorion in the modern format.
Right. Okay, so we see a replacement Esper Sentinel here into a Giver of Runes, so no Stoneforge activation. And he's not done yet for the turn, it looks like.
The beatdowns.
Well,
the good old Squire beats. Love to see it.
You got to get your point in there or you can.
Not leave that on the table. Absolutely not. Oh, I love it. We see another interest to play tapped land in Zach Allen's hand. He's got a lot of work to do. You see him kind of consulting his options. A lot of problems. Usually when you're using removal spells on a board state like this, it has to start with Giver of Runes. Otherwise, they just untap, protect, whatever, and then removal becomes very difficult. This Giver of Runes kind of a primary target, but this is also the only window to kind of maybe get the Esper Sentinel out of play before it really starts to have an incredible taxing effect on your mana over the course of multiple turns.
Yeah, absolutely. And so having to make hard choices here. So you see cards in hand, we have both of the pitch incarnations, which, well, Subtlety is not going to be great in this matchup ever. I'm sure he can't wait to board that out. Solitude, though, is a winner.
Ideal.
Solitude a winner, but you're right. Giver of Runes is kind of a problem.
It is, but I mean, every single one of these threats is a problem. You know,
Yeah.
Stoneforge Mystic representing instant speed equipment of all different varieties. Esper Sentinel kind of taxing the mana and or drawing cards for will. You do get to pick the poison. Both options are bad. And then Giver of Runes making your removal awkward the entire time you leave it in play. We're going to see Red and 6 quickly added to the mix. Going to be able to pay for that one. And I'd be surprised if we don't see it pick off the Esper Sentinel here.
Yeah.
He is carefully considering it, though.
No.
If you don't have any lands at all, maybe you have to pick lands up, and that does seem to be the case. That has to be a huge sign of weakness for Will. For Zach. Will has to sniff that out immediately as he quickly untaps.
Yeah, there is a Boseiju in hand, so Zach Allen does have another landing hand. He just would rather not play it as a land. In fact, this does set up maybe double Boseiju activations next turn, although assuming the Red and 6 lives might be optimistic.
Assuming Zach lives might be optimistic.
Here's a Puresteel Paladin. Zach's like, that might be a problem for me. You got to hold on.
Yeah, let me think about it. Yeah, I mean, that might be a subtlety target. I was going to mention that as like one of the probably the best target for subtlety in the matchup. Choosing to pass on that as here comes the Colossus Hammer. That is the card this deck is named after. Choosing a target carefully. Going to put it on Stoneforge Mystic. Maybe respecting Solitude a little bit here. We do still have Giver active. Just going to go ahead and lay the smack down.
Yeah, in for a respectable 12 there, I think.
And then move all that over to the Esper Sentinel. You going to pay 12, tough guy? You had your chance. You had your chance to minus the Sentinel. Now this one's drawing cards, whether you like it or not.
Okay, so Zach Allen drops to 4 all of a sudden.
Yeah. I mean, he did live. I feel like if I'm Zach Allen, I have to be pretty excited about that.
Okay, well, we're still not done.
Sure, deploy Sigarda's Aid too, in case, and this is of course in case everything goes wrong. Sigarda's Aid looking a little bit redundant with the Puresteel Paladin already in play, but Will does know that if Zach plans to take more turns in this game, these creatures need to leave the battlefield. Sigarda's Aid a little bit of insurance and just allowing you to be a little mana efficient. You get a good look at the enchantment there.
Yeah, I know we didn't get a chance to put the decks up on the screen before we started here, but we can tell you that Zach Allen has a grand total of 0 Supreme Verdicts main deck. So that's an issue.
A little tough. Little tough. Dress Down, normally a sweeper against things like Saga tokens. We've seen that, used to great effect against Urza Saga today. Not quite what the doctor ordered when there's a base power and toughness change being applied.
And even the fetch land itself is not too appealing here for Zach Allen with not much life to play with. Yeah,
3 versus 4 does actually matter with a bunch of these scrappy 1-power creatures in play. Of course, the ones that matter are the ones with the hammer on it. But, there's some leftovers, too, that even if you try to assemble some kind of sequence of blocks or destroying a equipment plus a block, that there's a problematic amount of power left over that it's still going to get through.
Yeah, and Boseiju here, I mean, it's just clearing at the equipment's not enough. Zach at 4 life, just these creatures, Puresteel Paladin, Giver of Runes, Stoneforge, Esper Sentinel, that's enough as it is.
Now, Archmage's Charm isn't irrelevant, right? Like, if we're talking about cards that can make a difference here, I think that one does have text. It is unfortunately quite expensive, but called out as one of the more playable cards in Modern that is good against Hammer. You see that last mode there, gain control of target, not land permanent, converted cost 1 or less. That allows you to gain control of all manner of different creatures. Esper Sentinel, of course, the big one on the table right now, but Giver of Runes can give you an extra blocker, does answer it as well. Instant speed tricks allow you to maybe not take a hammer hit as well as a result. There's a lot of play with this Archmage's Charm, and it's typically one of the cards quoted as very good against the hammer deck, but with Zach already so far behind and so many creatures in play, it may not be enough despite being, quite good in the matchup.
No, I agree with you, but yeah, I agree with the last part too, that it's too late. I mean, stealing Giver of Runes is just going to tap itself. Stealing anything else is just going to lead to the Giver tapping in response, and anything you cast is going to draw Will Krueger a card as well. I guess Esper Sentinel is no longer 12 power. Now it's only 11. So,
much more manageable. We'll pay that. We're good.
Yeah, this is okay. Will Krueger's going to fire up the Nexus potentially. That is something that Zach can deal with the Boseiju, but that would take half his mana.
Yeah, that one does not check Planeswalkers, right? So that one's still full retail at 2 mana.
Yeah, it's only creatures that discount it. So someone they're reading, if I don't, maybe the table judge has never seen the card Inkmoth Nexus before. Let's hope that's not the case.
I can't imagine that's not the case. Wondering what we're doing here. Maybe there's a kind of question about. Looks like Inkmoth plus Dress Down. We did see a Dress Down in Zach Allen's hand, trying to see what that card looks like when you dress down. Because this one's really funky, right? Because the ability to activate it does give it Infect again. So if you ship Infect off, give it Infect again. What happens? Well, I don't know. These rules are really weird.
Well, that won't happen because you wouldn't be able to turn it back into a Nexus again with Dress Down in play. Now, there is a very screwy ruling I remember from Legacy Infect from several years ago. Tom Ross playing it all the time and doing well in Star City events, where there was something about Inkmoth Nexus, and if you, I'm not with, was it with Humility maybe or some? There was something where if you turn off the Infect, it actually doesn't do any damage at all. It doesn't even do.
I think that was Malira. Yeah, I think that was.
Oh,
Malira.
You're right. Yeah,
because it can't get Infect, and all it does is try to give it Infect, and it ends up having Infect somehow, and so it ends up having Infect. But then the second line of Malira that says you can't get poison counters makes it just do nothing. It just does nothing at all. Malira just says absolutely not to Inkmoth Nexus.
Anyway, it looks like the whatever the question was has been answered.
Sure has.
Colossus Hammer. If Nexus is in the anime, Colossus Hammer is definitely going to end up there. As like poisoning Zach Allen down 1 point at a time wouldn't make much sense at this scenario.
Inkmoth in the good position for Will to whether or not it has Infect, it will be lethal for Zach Allen if it has a Colossus Hammer on it. Looks like Will was doing some indicating to make an equip, so I think Zach's considering responding here.
Do you does Will Krueger under the impression that if he wins with regular damage and poison in the same game, he wins the match?
I think so. It's like one of those flawless wins where you like win when they have no permanents in board. Exactly. It's the same kind of achievement unlocked. You get little Xbox achievements that come with your trophy when you win.
Well, there's still not going into this on. All right, so we are waiting on Zach Allen to make a decision here. That's what's going on. If he can dig his way out of this, that would be impressive. It's hard to see right now, but we know he does have what? Solitude, Subtlety, Archmage Charm, and Boseiju.
Yeah, it's funny. He feels like he has all the tools. He's just kind of capped on mana. And this can happen sometimes, especially on the draw when you're talking about control decks in Eternal formats like Modern, where there's a lot of efficient stuff that can happen over the first couple turns, which we did see Will have an extremely explosive draw. And, Zach Allen with all the answers if he had infinite mana, but he does not, as here's an Archmage's Charm going after the Giver. Looks like we're triggering the Esper Sentinel. Zach maybe went to pay the one and said, it's like 10, dude. I'm drawing this card.
All right, so Giver of Runes it's going to give something protection here. No, unlike Mother of Runes cannot protect itself. So let's see. Or, okay, it's going to tap. Maybe it's going to tap for mana. It is going to tap for mana.
Yeah, protection doesn't matter too much when Zach's already really capped on mana. It's like, you're not really trying to protect from a flurry of removal spells. There's just not going to be enough removal spells to get the job done as the hammer is going to move.
It does transfer over. Now, we know there's the Solitude. So are there two lethal? Yeah, it looks like there's 4 damage.
Yeah, we have damage and Infect kill here, right? So, like, even with, I think you need like 2 Solitudes to even have a chance here.
Yeah.
And Zach Allen does not, pushes the card on back, says, all right, you can have your Giver back. Fine, I didn't want it anyway. And we're going to shuffle up for game 2.
Yeah, if there is a game 2, I mean, Will Krueger did achieve the double victory there.
So he automatically wins the match. Maybe we're done here.
Maybe he's call the judge back over. Hey, judge, I heard a rumor that I have achieved this feat. Is the game over? Is the match over? All right, Zach Allen's Azorius control or Azorius plus Red and 6, because why not? You can see here an impressive mix of cards. Looks like he has done very well today, but we haven't seen him play against a deck quite like Hammer.
Very true. If you're looking at the sideboard, a card you called out in the first game that would have bailed him out, that we have 2 copies of in the sideboard here, Supreme Verdict. Have to imagine you can't get that one in the deck fast enough. Right. Looks really good. Boseiju also pretty appealing for destroying artifacts against the Hammer deck. Pretty appealing.
Yeah, absolutely. And stuff as far as it goes out, I mean, counter spells are great when you're countering something that costs equivalent mana. Okay, if it costs more mana, that's ideal. Basically nothing in Will's deck costs as much as the cheapest things in Zach's deck. So you're hard to get much advantage. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some counters go out, although I suppose they're better when you're going first. Maybe he decides he doesn't want that subtlety. That wouldn't be shocking. Maybe even, Jace the Mind Sculptor. Is that good enough here?
That's what I want to reach for. Typically, when I'm in these spots where I'm playing a control strategy and there's a deck trying to blow my doors off, the things that I don't want in my hand, especially early on, are win conditions. My goal is to play a long enough game. This is a deck that is not trying to beat my win conditions. They're just trying to kill me before I can cast them. So you don't need as many of them. So I would be reaching for, maybe cutting some of the counter spells, but honestly, those can still find spots where even if you're trading down on mana, the spell is so important to the Hammer deck, it still gets its equity worth. I kind of want to reach for some of the Planeswalkers, some of the Jaces, maybe Teferis, whichever one you think is worse. Shave on that a little bit.
All right, let's go to the other deck list. Will Krueger's Azorius Hammer deck. And we can see it here. He's got his one of Gingerbrute that he always has. A couple spell pierce, the only interaction against spells game 1, and we didn't see one come up, and he didn't need it. Does that mean he doesn't want the extra ones on the board? Probably not. Spell pierce seems pretty good to me here.
I have to agree with you. All the counter spells. I mean, we're looking at the sideboard. I want all of the counter spells, and I mean all of them. And I might even reach for something like the Lavinia. I don't know how good it can be, but like stopping the pitch elementals is really appealing, and that is one of the biggest blowouts. I know Boseiju also exists as well as a big blowout, but I just having another threat that interacts in some way with my opponent is somewhat appealing to me. But other than that, I mean, pretty straightforward. I think some of the cards that make you a little more all in to one specific removal spell, like maybe you can show on some Sigarda's Aids or something along those lines. That's kind of what I would reach for. Will, I'm sure, a lot more experienced, having made it here to the top 8 among a field of control. Gonna have a great idea for what to do there. Myself, having played infinite less Hammer, not necessarily sure, but I don't want to cut any of one card. I don't think there's anything that's just super egregious. I think you could do a lot of trimming of a lot of different columns and end up with a pretty good mix of cards here.
All right, let's go ahead and go back down the table. Players are presenting for game 2 of the top 8. Can Zach Allen even up the match, or is Will Krueger going to advance to the semifinals just like that? Another possibly, so there's the Pithing Needle in the sideboard for Will Krueger, which is an Urza Saga target. Is it? I mean, there's obviously Planeswalkers in Zach Allen's deck. Is that something that maybe he brings that in for a middle to later game to try and stall out Planeswalkers that are already on the board, or is that just not worthwhile? We'll see. I could go either way on that one.
Yeah, I can take or leave it. I think you can Pithing Needle the Boseiju, right? I think that's going to be the important interaction. If you can Pithing Needle Boseiju, I think he wants it. Yeah, and it sounds like he can. So I would probably reach for the Pithing Needle. I mean, it's not an A+ sideboard card, but Boseiju is problematic enough, and it does keep you from getting backdoored by just like a Rin plus Boseiju lock. Being able to shut that down, I think, is appealing enough to have a one of tutor target in your deck.
All right, Esper Sentinel into play again on turn 1 for Will Krueger. Zach Allen, by lieu of going first, able to play 1 removal spells and pay the tax if he chooses to. So not as much of a problem. And we do see Jason opening hand. Even if you leave Jason in, so you want some threats. I mean, you don't want it in your opening hand, ideally. And then, Chalice, great. Giving your opponent a card, Esper Sentinel, less good, but...
I mean, if it's blank, then that doesn't matter. We see Chalice of the Void. 2 copies in Zach Allen's deck in the main deck. A little bit of a hedge. You can put that on 0 against the Cascade decks. It is also very potent here on 1. Although Will Krueger, a great follow-up after a Chalice on 1, having the Saga ready to go alongside a Stoneforge Mystic, doing the thing Hammer does very well, pressuring the control decks on different axes. We are now presenting the ability to make construct tokens if the Stoneforge Mystic gets interacted with. Nettlecyst appears to be the card fetched up. So here comes a Chalice on 0. Zach drawing both copies. Nettlecyst, a sweet pickup from Modern Horizons for the artifact decks. +1/+1 for each artifact and enchantment, and has a living weapon, as so many of the good Stoneforge Mystic targets do. Did go ahead and answer the Esper Sentinel. No more cards for you. Thank you.
Yeah, and this Chalice for 1 is doing some work already. Will's got at least Sigarda's Aid in hand, and I think a Spell Pierce as well.
Spell Pierce would be really good. It's a little late to the party as far as tapping out early in the early turns. And we are seeing the huge difference that being on the play versus on the draw makes in this matchup. That Spell Pierce would have probably caught this Chalice on 1, played on turn 2 pretty easily. I don't think, Will would have been as eager, having the Esper Sentinel already in play, to tap out. You can catch things like Ren and Six and the like, and the 2-mana play getting spell pierced is brutal for Zach, but that didn't happen as we are now making a construct token.
All right, and there's a Boseiju to take it down. Take out the Saga, actually.
Take down the Saga. So Saga not going to be able to search up an artifact, but does get a land for his trouble. Still a 2-for-1, making this construct token and grabbing a land. So that to me signals that Zach Allen really does not want Will to make another construct. He really wants the flow of creatures hitting the battlefield to slow down dramatically. Signals maybe like only spot removal spells in the sweeper, maybe trying to stick a planeswalker, something of that nature. As here is Kaldra Compleat coming down. Yeah. That one appears to have already been in Will's hand. Gonna go ahead and put that one into play at a huge discount. And we get a look at that one.
Big discount there. Plus, gonna be able to crash it for haste, Springleaf Drum. Zach Allen's like, yeah, I'm paying attention to this Chalice. Chat is discussing whether or not how things developed on the turn where Zach played the second Chalice. And yeah, either Will Krueger missed his Sentinel trigger or the Prismatic Ending should have been countered by the Chalice on 1. So my assumption is that it was played for 2 mana to kill the Sentinel, and then I don't believe Will Krueger got a card off of that, but that is certainly something that can be missed. I think
he got the card off the Chalice on 0 because he led on the Chalice on 0. Will Krueger drew a card, and then he paid.
Okay. So he did draw off of it then, and then
I think so.
Yeah, because I think it's unlikely that Prismatic Ending was cast for 1, and Will Krueger didn't notice that.
Yeah, these players very, very good at what they do, and definitely paying attention with so much on the line. But we don't get a good listen on what they're talking about, what they're saying, so it is easy to kind of miss that off of just moving cards around alone. As here's Jace the Mind Sculptor. Better than all, Joe. Better than all.
Certainly pretty strong. Good at dealing with germs. Which, I mean, seems like he's strongly incentivized to do. It will be a 4-mana unsummon, but what are you going to do?
An important unsummon, though. Making that discount on the Kaldra Compleat matter a lot less.
Maybe not. I mean, with the potential of Solitude, he may choose not to go after that germ and try and brainstorm.
To Teferi is leftovers. Have to imagine this is an unsummon, because maybe we could do something like unsummon, find another removal spell, hit the construct token, and then Will's close to out of gas. But as you can see, Will saying, "Yeah, I still have the Nettlecyst," and Zach going to get a good read on that one. But it doesn't look like it's anything.
I mean, if the choice here is, do I brainstorm and try and hit Solitude to keep Jace at 3? Jace is going to die anyway. So I think balancing just makes the most sense, and that is what Zach Allen decides to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's still a lot of pressure on this table. I mean, even if we spend this turn just casting Nettlecyst, we're still looking at an attack for what, 3-4 coming across, and with Zach Allen already at 10, that's close to half his life total.
Right, absolutely. And then with Boseiju, we saw one already. I mean, there are 3 total plus the running 6. The more Boseiju activations there are, the closer Will gets to actually being able to pay 7 for Kaldra Compleat to re-equip. That's something we generally see, but I mean, he's not that far off.
Absolutely. And Zach Allen also running low on cards. He's doing a lot of 1-for-1ing with Will, and the extra cards off Esper Sentinel. It's a card we've called out every game. The best opening you can have against the control decks, and I think it's mattering a lot here. Each of these 2-for-1s Will's gotten: Esper Sentinel, Urza Saga, even Stoneforge Mystic. Coming up here as we see Will still with plenty of gas, as here comes Nettlecyst, and Zach Allen only down to like an Otawara and a Teferi. Zach needs to find one of his supreme verdicts fairly quickly, I think.
Right. And you talked about these planeswalkers. I mean, that they're slow, even though they're powerful. And we see Jace here, and Teferi in hand, and it's just too slow onto the board. Will is not wasting any time. Here's an attack for, let's see, it looks like Jace is going to go down.
Jace, and I imagine the Stoneforge went at
4 at so 4 goes through. Zach drops to 6. And Inkmoth Nexus onto the board now.
Dress down, not irrelevant. That card going to be able to take care of the construct token, representing a ton of power. Inkmoth can add to the artifact count for Nettlecyst. And as you mentioned, we're already at 5 mana. Suddenly, you're right. Like, this equip of Kaldra Compleat isn't necessarily a pipe dream.
Right. And if dress down is used to kill the construct, which it may have to be, Inkmoth Nexus, if it reverts to doing normal damage, also is going to pump the Stoneforge Mystic. I mean, this is a pretty heavy attack anyway.
And we see everything fired up and a very quick attack with everybody. Zach, yeah, gonna have to fire up this dress down. Maybe need some help off of this trigger too. We'll see if Will has any responses. Does have counter spells in his deck, I imagine. We saw Spell Pierce at least. Mana Leak maybe in there as well. No Mana Leak going to happen. That's going to kill the token and draw a card. Prismatic ending the pickup. Do some quick math on damage.
This is 5, I think.
Going to 1.
Oof. This is a bad place to be. And there's a 6th land.
6th land.
Let's go.
You just want to see that manual equip so bad, huh?
I don't know if I've ever seen that happen in coverage.
Oh, Solitude to pick up. That pairs with that Teferi very well in a pinch. Now we can answer this Stoneforge Mystic. And this Inkmoth Nexus is actually going to be doing en-Vec now, so not even representing lethal right now. So Zach, if Will doesn't have a follow-up right now, and he's had a lot already, Zach maybe is in a commanding spot to start taking control of this game.
Yeah, you're right about that. Here's an attack for what, 4 poison?
4 poison. Not dead on board to that one yet.
No. And if a land drawn here would be huge, although it can't be a tap land and it can't be a fetch land either.
Oh, I think we have Otawara in hand as well as a pair of Teferis. One the 3-mana one the 5-mana one that will pair with the Solitude. So we can maybe tap out for the 5-mana Teferi here. Plus that up, start getting some card advantage. But
all right, that'd be one way to go.
Thinking to play the 3-mana one instead. Respond with Spell Pierce. That trigger Chalice. No, thank you.
All right. Yeah, this. I was thinking play Otawara and then be able to hard cast Solitude, but yeah, this is going to work also. Although there is a cost, but yeah, this is
You wanted a hard cast? I don't think he can, right? Does he have the lands for that?
Oh, he's not 2 white.
I
just assumed he had multiple white. Maybe you're right.
Let me get a good look at the
There's definitely
there's a rock print in play for sure.
There's a breeding pool, and then whatever the bottom line. If that's Zagoth, you're right. There is no.
I think that one's Zagoth.
Yeah. Okay, you're right.
Maybe we're wrong about it being an Otawara, because I feel like the 5-mana Teferi makes a lot more sense in that turn. And like it's just I see a full art blue card. It looked like Otawara. I assumed it was the full art Otawara. It might be the full art Subtlety. Here's another hit for poison. Lethal poison potentially coming across next turn. Zach untaps and draws. That's another. I think that's Rafine's Tower is the Triome drawn. A tap land doesn't allow you to play 5-mana Teferi or hardcast Solitude.
Well, Zach seems to have stabilized this somewhat, but if he is forced to pitch cast the Solitude here, that is going to be costly. Okay, picking up Kahira is nice because then you're able to hold onto the Teferi. That's pretty significant.
Yeah, I mean, holding on to the Teferi, I think, is big game. I mentioned earlier about how Will has managed to give himself quite a bit of card advantage over Zach Allen in this matchup so far. And see ya, Kahira. Get that thing out of my face. Solitude. And now these Chalices come into play big, shutting down a lot of threats. Plenty of equipment for the next threat to come into play. But with a bunch of them kind of uncastable thanks to Chalice, Zach maybe now finally has the opening to play that 5-mana Teferi and start taking control of the game. Archmage's Charm, a big pickup too.
Yeah, this is. I mean, Zach Allen almost looks like he's got the wraps on this. Would be too much to say, but he's looking okay. That's a Subtlety, I think, in hand too, and which is able to be free cast. And yeah, this is Will Krueger's got to be thinking like, did I let a point get away somewhere? And I don't think he did, but you have to be second guessing yourself at this point. The way things have turned around.
Absolutely. I think Zach Allen playing a fetch land there. That was the one in the glare. Looks like a Misty Rainforest to me. That one not going to work. Not yet. Here's 2 lands untapped thanks to 5-mana Teferi's in-step ability. 2 Teferis in play, both with a ton of loyalty. Huge pickup here. Puresteel Paladin. If we can make a 3rd artifact, we can equip and give it haste. And Zach Allen, respecting that, says, no thank you. Pitches Archmage Charm to Subtlety.
Yeah, doesn't really have a choice there. Frustrating for Will Krueger. Cannot interact here with... And it goes on top. Play Springleaf Drum. That doesn't make it in.
Absolutely not. Zach staying on top of his Chalice triggers. Going to go on top is Puresteel Paladin. Zach draws. A lot to look at here. Can't really bounce any of the equipment because then you just get another living weapon. So the 3-mana Teferi is still looking kind of awkward. plussing both to fairies and a quick pass. Another Archmage's Charm and Prismatic Ending picked up, and that, to me, feels like it's going to be enough to seal this one with 2 Planeswalkers in play. What a close game.
Prismatic Ending at instant speed takes it down, and yep, this was extremely close. You're right about that. Teferi, Hero of Dominaria up to 7, draws run in 6. I don't remember if we saw Bosechi this game or not. I feel like we might have. Yeah, we did early.
We definitely did. It blew up the Urza Saga early in the game.
Picking that up is another
Boseiju, I'm sure. Yeah. Zach very quickly pulling that one to the front. Boseiju in hand. Yeah, and that's enough for Will Krueger. He sees the writing on the wall, and like we mentioned, what a close game. When we talk about control decks turning the corner here, and with that Ren and 6 adding to the mix, Will understands he's functionally locked out despite the life totals looking extremely asymmetrical.
Yeah, that was pretty stunning. Yeah, I mean, that was, 8 poison and 1 life. That's tough and close on both ranks. But Zach Allen evens up. Okay, we'll glance at the deck list again in case you're curious, in case you just showed up. Thanks for being here. And we can look at Zach Allen's main deck and sideboard here. I don't think we saw some of the cards we speculated about. We didn't see Verdict, although it probably came in. We did see Jace, which we thought might go out. So
and we saw some Boseiju. We saw at least a Boseiju going to work. Subtlety, we did still see in the deck. Not sure what the composition of subtleties in the deck. We did call that one out as maybe not being too good, but it did line up against the exact creature we mentioned it might want to. That was Puresteel Paladin in a pretty critical moment. I do wonder if we're also going to reach for this Hallowed Moonlight. Maybe another thing to clean up some of these Saga tokens that have been 2-for-1ing Zach Allen in multiple places could be appealing. Like the floor of it does cantrip. But you might not have time for that against the Esper Sentinel deck. So I'm not sure how excited we are about looking at that card. But a potential bring-in as well.
All right. We can go back and take one more quick look at Will Krueger's deck before going back for game 3. The players are still shuffling. We saw that Chalice the One really just wipe him out there in game number 2.
Didn't see as many of the counter spells, and when we did see the spell pierce, it was too little too late under the Chalice on 1. Zach drawing both of his Chalices didn't look great right away. Will did a very good job of through the mid game, kind of playing through those with 2 mana spells, but eventually ran out of those, and the Chalices found plenty of targets as Will put them on the stack. Hopefully we'll see on the play Will maybe get to play a little bit more Magic underneath some of these.
I mean, do you bring in removal for Chalice, or you just ignore it and hope it doesn't come up, or hope you have your Spell Pierce in hand when it happens? Especially going first, it seems less enticing. And March of Otherworldly Light's not hitting that many other things.
Yeah, I'm not super excited about March of Otherworldly Light. I would probably rely on my 5 different counter spells to be the ones to pick up the slack as far as answering Chalices in this matchup. I think over-respecting it seems a great way to dilute your deck and not be able to blow the doors off of Zach Allen like you do want to do on the play, as Will did a great job of doing in game 1. So here's a turn 1 Sigarda's Aid. Worse than Esper Sentinel, but good at enabling fast kills.
Right, yeah. Certainly not the ideal turn 1 play. Zach Allen
Windswept Heath and a quick pass to the turn back from Zach.
Most of Zach Allen's turn 1s aren't going to consist of much, especially with the deck built on playing main deck Chalice of the Void.
and having Triumphs into the battlefield tap to make things like Leyline Binding work. I have to imagine that's what that fetch land's going to find here is a Saga comes into play right on time. Usually you do want it at about the 2nd land. That allows you to make both Saga creature tokens.
Oh boy, but if this start means with no play, if Will Krueger's plan is to go another land and then make tokens, that's really not very much of an aggressive start.
Well, these players know each other's deck list. If you're Zach Allen here, I feel like if you watch this turn 1 play, you've seen Esper Sentinel in both games 1 and 2. They were both really hard. If Will's willing to pass on that and look at a hand that's maybe based around Saga, are you thinking counter spells here on Will Krueger's side?
I mean, it's possible, certainly. This is still, I guess, 1 construct and then can be equipped and attack on the next turn by the Sigarda's Aid if a hammer is tutored up. So this is still a sizable offense, just takes a while to get going. No play for anybody yet.
And a shock. It looks like we might want to move to end step. Are we trying to dress down on end step here so it's into play? I don't think we want to do that quite yet. But Will's already seen the card. Zach Allen may be thinking, like I said, trying to do something on instep. We do see sometimes the little trick where you try to dress down on instep, have it work on the opponent's turn, but We moved further and in draw step.
Yeah, it might have been upkeep.
Before the second land can happen, let's besiege you that Saga.
Yeah.
Can't get that one countered.
Yeah, that might have been in Zach Allen's intention to do that in upkeep, and Will Krueger peeled the card too fast, and then they eventually decided, well, it doesn't really matter anyway.
Yeah, most of the time it's better to do in draw step, I think, anyway. You can't really counter the Besiege, and all that matters is not getting the second land, as here is Puresteel Paladin quickly added to the mix. Follow-up land of another Urza Saga. That one's pretty big. No further plays, and no reason to. If you have any equipment, want to hold it until it's time to matter. Prismatic Ending, a big pickup for Zach to answer this Puresteel Paladin. No counter spells up for Will Krueger.
All right. Thinking this through, Teferi in hand as well as the Prismatic Ending.
Yeah, and maybe Zach Allen thinking like, okay, this is a good spot to play Teferi, bounce the Puresteel Paladin, and then I can tick it up on the next turn and instant speed the Prismatic Ending. That has to be the consideration here, versus maybe putting a land in tapped, conserving some life, and using the ending now.
It could be. It could also be, I mean, the Teferi would not be able to defend itself, but it could be Teferi bounce there as a Saga as well. There are real vulnerabilities to that, though, as Will Krueger does have Saga in play.
Yeah, and I mean, even just that exposes you to like a 2-hammer kill as well.
Right.
With the Sigarda's 8 also in play already. And yeah, that Puresteel Paladin's got to go. Card coming for Zach Allen, another Prismatic Ending.
All right, so Will Krueger showing us another Saga.
How about Saga number 3?
Wow. So now, yeah, it just puts the brakes on the hand size, and I'll just make constructs every single turn and see if Zach Allen dies.
Yeah, see if you could die to these. Now, Dress Down would be a huge one here. We do know there's multiple copies of Prismatic Ending.
And the Teferi stayed in play. So, yeah, you're right. Flash Prismatic Ending can deal with a lot.
True. But it is going to start bleeding card advantage from Zach Allen. That's something that we've seen happen across these last 2 games, both this one and the previous game, where the Urza Saga's construct tokens are worth usually a whole card on their own because they do have to be removed because they're so large. Zach taking a quick think here.
Yeah, there might be a judge call. He certainly looked off to the side there. I wonder if he has one of the players has a question.
All right. I think he was thinking about whether to shock this land or not.
Yeah.
He did choose to. Ren and 6 going to come into play. That one can get Paseju back. Now, do we go after the Saga now?
There's a Rogan Triumph and is that Rogan Triumph and a Hallowed Fountain? I don't think there's green.
Oh, we can't. Yeah, maybe we had to shock in. Yeah, because it looks like one breeding pool, Steam Vents, Hallowed Fountain, Rogan Triumph. So all Jeskai except the breeding pool.
Okay.
So you can't use it now. But that's okay. I think you're fine doing some Prismatic Ending action here and then blow up the 1/2 on your next turn. That it does deny Will. I think a total of 2 constructs of the max total allowed, because he can only make 1 here. And well, maybe he can make 2. You can make 1, go get a Springleaf Drum. No, that's not enough.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, he's not going to want to get Springleaf Drum anyway. He's going to hope this token's going to connect, even though we know it's not. And you can't have a Spell Pierce or something to protect it because of the Teferi. So this is just going to get blown away. Maybe there's a world where Zach Allen Prismatic Endings the Colossus Hammer, but that seems unlikely.
Yeah, and I think Zach definitely getting paid off huge for choosing to do the Teferi line that we saw in turn 3, where he picked up the Puresteel Paladin. Just having that Planeswalker in play for all these interactions gives him so much insurance against things like Blacksmith skill and opposing counter spells, the whole 9. Yeah. And that's going to matter a lot here, as he's planning on answering what Will has going on with just 1-for-1 removal spells.
All right, so Will does have the floating mana from the other Saga and gets in there. And I guess there's no risk of Dress Down in this case because this first construct is already holding a Colossus Hammer.
Exactly. And it looks like we're going to use the more expensive removal spell in the form of Leyline Binding. That's going to take care of the first token. Now, the cool thing with this one is you can pick it up later, answer another token, and they don't get the token back because it's gone for good. So this 3-mana Teferi could be worth a lot in a couple turns as far as getting another removal spell and another card coming. Zach, I'm sure, interested in leaving all of his Planeswalkers in play and beginning to turn the corner on this game.
Yeah, this one certainly seems. I mean, the first game, Will Krueger busted through and won. The second game, but Will Krueger really had a pretty good start and wasn't quite able to finish it off. This one, Zach Allen's been much more in the game in the developing turns.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, we saw some early development, and I think it also comes down to Will with a little bit of a weaker start. You know, we saw both previous games Will open on kind of some of the best stuff you can have in this matchup. Esper Sentinel followed up by good pressure, that multiple angles of attack that I mentioned earlier, as far as being able to fight on the en-Vec with lands, being able to fight with construct tokens on card advantage. You get to choose the terms of engagement. For lack of a better word, but Will very much kind of just playing what his hand was dealt here for the most part, with the whole Sigarda's Aid and Colossus Hammer stuff. Puresteel Paladin is able to move in on the mix, but with Zach Allen having the answers to all three of these sagas at the ready, trying to find him that card advantage access has been much harder for him.
Yeah, Boseiju takes down Saga here, and then gets recurred immediately by running 6. And a fetch here, Zach Allen can find some additional green mana if he wants it. He does not.
Looks like we don't need that too much. Just going to elect to use the mana now. I think do we have an Archmage's Charm? What are we looking at here? This is the 2 mana Prismatic Ending. Going to go after the Puresteel Paladin.
All right.
And that one's done main phase. Could have been done at instant speed. No reason to wait. Don't let him move stuff around. Like we could like play a land, activate Inkmoth, and then maybe, I don't know, who knows? Don't give him the chance. That one has to be answered anyway. And we're going to Prismatic Ending the token that can attack in response to this Esper Sentinel. That leaves no valid attackers for Will right now this turn.
Yeah, this is looking rough. I mean, just to fair, like you talked about Leyline Binding being able to be reset. I mean, we're getting close to it.
And maybe a little bit of flood out for Will too. I mean, you kept his hand based around the sagas that can eventually turn into artifacts and, you know, make constructs and all that stuff. That has been shut down, and they've been turned into just regular lands thanks to Boseiju. And now Will looking with quite a few lands, a lot more than the deck normally wants to operate on.
All right, Sentinel gets picked off by running 6, and yeah, Zach Allen just doing a good job of controlling the board, removing, I mean, not just every important threat, but basically just dealing with everything. And okay, another land drop made, and I mean, able to fetch at will here. 12 life is plenty to play with.
Plenty. And a Rafine's Tower in hand could even start to look to cycle that, get the Ren thing going. Like, he finally has a little bit of breathing room. None of his planeswalkers are even really threatened to die right away unless there's another hammer for Will, which would have to be main phase, just really face up and what have you. And can maybe start to get a little bit card advantage, start to set up his engine and really lock Will out of the game, no matter what he draws. Hear a bot.
Yeah.
Gonna plus up Teferi again, and now we're at that threshold where next turn, if he gets shit untap, he just gets to rebuy the Leyline Binding and get a card for his trouble.
Yeah,
and that is when things really start to look grim for Will Krueger. So we need a big turn from him, no matter what.
Yeah, and Will's got this Puresteel Paladin in play, which, I mean, obviously he realizes is Zach Allen's going to want to protect the Teferi, and since it rolled up, you have to assume Zach's got something. Yeah, Will's like combat, and Zach's like, yeah, come on, let's go, get this over with. Get in here. You know I've got
Come and get me.
You know you're not getting through, and it gets through immediately. All right.
It gets through just fine. Yeah, what do you want to do? What do you want to do, tough guy? You want to attack the Planeswalker on 4 or the Planeswalker on 4? Or me at 12? Yeah. Choose your character. And Will intelligently attacking the Teferi. You know, I do think that if that Leyline Binding gets reset, this game looks really bad for Will Krueger.
Yes.
Will almost certainly agreeing with that attack. But no follow-up means that Zach's going to get to untap and kind of have his way with these planeswalkers, and that doesn't spell good news for Will Krueger either.
All right.
All right, let's just start blowing stuff up. Your lands. We're going after the lands. Get them. No blue mana for you.
I mean, this is open deck list in top 8. There could be mana leaks. He's not going to mess with that. Yeah, just get this out of here. And he probably, I mean, Zach Allen is an experienced, attentive player. He's probably took a glance how many basics were in Will's deck. Is it possible to run him out, or can I just, you know, continue to strip the colors? Is that even really relevant?
I think what matters here is that you want to get the value that's basically free off your Boseiju, but you don't want to hit things that are in play and potentially ramp wheel to something like the Kaldra Compleat before you have an answer to it.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. All right, Kahir in play now. Teferi back to 3. And Will Krueger. And we joked in the first game about him getting to 7 mana for Kaldra Compleat. Didn't quite get there. It didn't matter. There's a Needle. It did come in.
We got a little update from our other matches here. It looks like our Golgari Yawgmoth player, Dominic Vitello, has defeated Andrew Ellenbogen on Jeskai Breach. And it looks like George Jabauer on Azorius Control has felled Justin Brickman in the control mirror, but hit Justin, of course, on 4-color control.
Okay. So this is the last match playing in the quarterfinals. So when it's done, we don't need to take a break. There's nothing to wait for. We will maybe summarize the bracket, and then when the players are ready, we can just go in, depending on who. I mean, if the winner of this match needs a break for a few minutes to go to the bathroom or something, then perhaps we'll see. But other than that, there's no real reason for a long delay here before we get the action continuing on. But we have not decided a winner here yet, even though Zach Allen does seem to have his grip on the game.
And there's the Pithing Needle you called out during the sideboard for game 2. Does matter some amount here. These Planeswalkers are very much what is keeping Zach Allen ahead, as a Rafine's Tower pretty quickly cycled. That one being able to shut down one of the Planeswalkers, I have to imagine it went after Teferi, but it could have been Wrenn.
It could have also been Boseiju, like you mentioned, as a possibility as well. Right. I guess...
Looks like Wrenn's being activated, which makes me think it's not that one. I love the process of elimination, Joe.
Yeah. Well, so if oh wow, okay. So it's gonna be double Wrenn activation.
Get rid of that Puresteel Paladin. It's looking at me wrong. Absolutely not.
If it was not Wrenn and not Boseiju, then it's a guarantee that Boseiju could kill the Needle regardless. So maybe Boseiju was named, although Teferi hasn't activated this turn.
Looks like he's reaching for it. Yeah, I think you're right. I think Boseiju was named. Is typically the best name, as you called out. You just get to blow it up with Boseiju if you don't name Boseiju, so it's kind of locked in to doing that one. And Springleaf Drum, bunch of noise in Will's hand that does not answer what's in play. Will sees the writing on the wall and offers his hand to his fellow competitor.
All right, so Zach Allen is victorious and will advance to the top 4. That matters, obviously, through the course of this tournament, the results of the day, and also on the overall year-long leaderboard. Let's go ahead and bring that up while we've got a moment, and we will see both Zach Allen and Will Krueger fairly high on the list. Zach Allen, currently the second unqualified player in line, although potentially with the results this weekend, maybe he can pass the way Reedman and reach up into the top. Either way, the top 4 players on this list at the end of the year will qualify for the championship. And you can see Will Krueger is currently 4th.
Oh, wow.
Any points?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big pickup, winning over Zach Allen behind on points. It's a big match to win, not just for money, not just for the trophy, not just for the glory, but for these extremely valuable NRG points as well for the championship. Ellenbogen, less needing the points, did lose here in our quarterfinals, but he's already qualified. We will already be seeing him at the championship at the end of the year already.
Yeah. Okay. So there's how that stands. If we have an updated bracket, Drake already read out some of the results, but maybe we can take a look at that. If not, we can just sit here and there we go. All right. So like you said, Dominic Vitello with Golgari Yawgmoth and Stephen Dykeman with Grease's Death Shadow representing the non-control players. I believe we had 4 control decks in the top 8, maybe.
Yeah, it looks like 4 made it, and half of them made it on. So about on rate, about what you'd expect.
And Zach Allen and George Jabauer. So we could have a control mirror in the finals. We could also have Yawgmoth versus Death Shadow in the finals. We will see how that plays out. So if you're enjoying the content, stick around and watch how this day plays out, and also give us a follow if you're enjoying things. Drake Sasser here. Okay, players taking a break. They're going to go to the bathroom for a minute. So we'll take a minute here as well. We'll be right back with the top 4. This is Nerd Rage Gaming. Thanks for watching. We'll be back.